So Zen, if you can actually share your desktop and you're ready to go.
Oh, Johnny, I cannot go because the presentation is in my teammate's place, and he is going to do the presentation.
Desktop and you're ready to go.
Can you let David and Kyla go first? Hello, can you hear me?
Since Zen can't go, I can go.
Johnny, you mute yourself. David, go ahead. Yeah, thanks.
So Zen, can you actually share your
Johnny,
your
mute yourself.
desktop and be prepared to
David,
present?
go ahead. Thanks.
So Zen, can you actually share your desktop and be prepared to present?
No, Johnny, I'm not ready to present. I can share my screen. That's no problem.
Okay, just there we go. Just be prepared.
Okay.
Great.
No.
We're going to start in 5 minutes at 9:30. So just be prepared 5 minutes. So we're almost ready to go. We're just waiting for one more judge to show up, and then we'll get going. So we're almost ready to go. We're just waiting for one more judge to show up, and then we'll get going. So we're almost ready to go. We're just waiting for one more judge to show up, and then we'll get going. So we're almost ready to go. We're just waiting for one more judge to show up, and then we'll get going. So we're almost ready to go. We're just waiting for one more judge to show up, and then we'll get going. So we're almost ready to go. Just waiting for one more judge to show up, and then we'll get going. So we're almost ready to go. Just waiting for one more judge to show up, and then we'll get going. So we're almost ready to go. Just waiting for one more judge to show up, and then we'll get going. Started. 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 Yeah, so all right, we're gonna get started. We have 3 remote participants who are ready to go. And we've got a chat in the IRC regarding another participant trying to share their screen. We have so far Zen, Kyle, and David remotely, and they are for teams.
Patient Physician Network, D3 Health, and 2C Health. So we'll begin with Patient Physician Network. A reminder, there's 5 minutes for presentations. 3 is the actual presentation. 2 is for Q&A with the judges. Again, that 5 minutes is, hold on, it's funny hearing myself talk. So that 5 minutes is yours to use however you see fit. If you want to take up the entire time, okay, but just remember that you will not be able to take questions for the judges to clarify anything. So without further ado, Patient Physician Network, you are up.
Actually, I asked the Jenny if we can present later because the presentation should be due by my teammates. So can David, you go first? I asked the Jenny if we can present later because the presentation should be due by my teammates. So can David, you go? Hello?
So which team is this? Patient Physician Network, you ready to go?
Yeah, no, we are not ready to go.
I think you guys are having a difficult time hearing or understanding us, possibly because of the echo, but Zen has been saying the whole time that his team is not here. They weren't ready to present until 10 o'clock.
Oh, not until 10 o'clock. All right, we'll switch to David then.
There we go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, when you can see my screen and hear me, I can start at any time.
Okay, David, the clock is counting.
Fantastic. Okay, our team name is 2C Data. One of our larger projects is Orphans in the Desert. It's specifically concerned with improving the health outcome of people with orphan diseases, which are people who have disorders that affect less than 200,000 people in the US, and they're typically adversely affected by inefficient access to EHR, bed, EMR, and things of that nature. So one of the things that you guys were looking into with the blockchain for health data is using the blockchain as an access control manager to health records that are stored off blockchain. And the issue was there's no open standards or implementations for blockchain, but research, supports the feasibility. So that's what I worked on. So what we're doing here is we're looking at Talia, a trust layer inversion. The objective of this is to be able to take, in addition to multiple other data sources that are ultimately going to go into a data lake, using blockchain information to be able to have a high grain level of security, authentication, and availability by using metadata that's actually stored in HBase. Now, the idea is this would be a wrapper on your existing data lake. So for an up and running health IT system, this would be in addition to, but not instead of, because the goal is not really to break things. Also, everything that we're using here is open source, because that was another part of it. So the whole blockchain chain code is based off of IBM's Hyperledger Fabric. That's an Apache project that's quite far along because of IBM support. And it basically has 3 actions, which are invoke, query, and actually init, which I have stubbed out here. Now what I did is I'm using Bluemix that you guys can see everything, because they do actually have they have a Hyperledger Fabric as a service available. So I created their most simple application and then dropped that information onto, this is their blockchain service. And the idea is I dropped all this information into Kafka. The idea is if you are going to bring in a new service, you should isolate it from the rest of the network, and it's unlikely that blockchain would live in Yarn. So you can see that it has fairly chatty messages going from the blockchain that are stored in Kafka. Now, Bluemix does not support it, but Apache Atlas is considered the data governance engine, the open source data governance engine for Hadoop. It supports dynamic and rule-based metadata tagging.
2-minute warning.
Everything that you would want out of a solution. And the idea that it drops this into HBase. Now, what I did with HBase is just a distributed, sorted key map. But in that map of keys, key value pairs, you also get the ability to create 0 to n number of tags. And these tags can also be used to control visibility. So under the code that I have, what it allows you to do, or what it's stubbed out to do, is basically take data that is going to be stored from the fabric that gets pushed into the HBase repository. The HBase repository updates its tags that are in HBase with metadata information such as permissions, trust, things of that nature from the blockchain itself. Now, after that, the blockchain doesn't have to store that data anymore. It can just store a SHA tag, which is a pointer to HBase. So now on, if you communicate with blockchain, you only look at the SHA. You don't look at the real data. But if
30
you
seconds.
blockchain, it's going to update the tags in HBase. So like I said, this is in addition to your other metadata, security, and auditing solutions that run aside blockchain. It just uses Hyperledger in an interesting way and HBase in an interesting way.
Okay, time is up.
There you go.
Thank you, David with 2C Data. Kyle, are you ready with Team D3 Health?
Yes. Can you hear us?
We can hear you.
Outstanding. Let me try to share my screen here.
Okay, and you let me know when you're ready and we can start the clock.
How's that showing up for you guys?
We can see it. Looks good.
Does that work?
Yep.
All right, we ready?
All right, I'm starting now.
I'm Josh Kalen. I'm here with Kyle Culver. We're D3 Health. Look at the current landscape of health information exchange from a high-level view. There's a lot of players in this segment, some big, some small. Expensive one-off integrations are the norm, $10,000 a piece, some numbers that we found. There's a lot of missing data between providers. This leads to undervalued risk and decreased quality, which impact MRA and HEDIS. Our technology adoption has some laggards in this area because there's no incentives to move forward. And the economies of scale are driving consolidation, which is further pushing up those silo walls. The patient sees gaps in care linked to information deficiencies, and too much effort is required on their part. There are some technology advancements in this area that we want to leverage, especially things like FHIR and other electronic health standards. The real opportunity here is, instead of that mesh network on the last slide, take all the same players, interface them with blockchain, so one interface a piece. What we want to do is improve quality metrics, increase reimbursement, and reduce penalties for providers, make it convenient and seamless for patients. From a provider's point of view, data is an asset. There's a need for better quality patient health data. Quality is a function of accuracy, consistency, completeness, timeliness, and validity. Better data leads to better outcomes. Some incentives are already in place to have better data. HEDIS. This helps meet compliance requirements and leads to CMS star ratings, which increase the reimbursement rate and drive more patients into the offices. Medicare risk adjustment allows a provider to increase their reimbursement rate from CMS. Data is the currency. What we need to do is to look at the patient point of view. Now, patients see data as an asset, which is kind of surprising because PHR has not caught on. We see things like Microsoft Health Vault and Google Health that have failed in the marketplace. Patients are often only engaged when something goes wrong. They just want their data to be available when they need it. We're going to take a card catalog approach, make your data easy to find, but we can delegate fine-grained specific access to point of care, home health care, caregivers, and pharmacies. Okay, we need a market to do all of this. Let's look at the most efficient market, NASDAQ. NASDAQ has a set of brokers that surround it. Investors interact with these brokers. And you also have some players like the government, in this case, the SEC, that help do regulatory tasks. Completing this analogy, we're replacing NASDAQ with the D3 blockchain. The brokers from the previous slide are now our EMR vendors. Our investors are now our providers. So we created a marketplace for this data. We're going to leverage existing technologies like Smart on Fire and HL7. Hand it off to Kyle.
And this is Kyle, and since we just are close on time here, this is the high-level overview of the solution. I'll go through it as we actually demo the software. And so this software is looking at how we can get data from a PCP to, another doctor, like a specialist, and from that specialist. So really being able to treat that data as an asset between these two individuals. When we look at this, we see that we have, different pieces of information here that we need to be able to trade as an asset. Sorry about that, as well as being able to go through and pick the format or the spec, being able to look at different validators and the credibility around that, and set a value, for the information, as well as, set timeliness and things of that nature. And so after we look at that, and, you can leave that blank, being ensured that we have the patient consent. And so when we update and we send that over, now we can see that that's been written to the blockchain, see that written there. If we log out and we go and look, so that's the data provider, and we go to the specialist now, who's going to be able to see this information that comes over and has, a request for them to go and find that information and be able to leverage it. And so they can approve or deny with the value that they're going to provide to that PCP, because the PCP finds that that's valuable. And so they can approve, and you can see this is going out and bumping up against those existing services and existing FHIR APIs that are out there in order to go get conditions, to kind of paint that picture and inform that provider. And so from there, you see this balance go and update, and the blockchain here is being updated. We're kind of painting that picture around that exchange. So with that, we'll wrap up and we'll turn it over for questions.
Okay, time. You have questions? No questions. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to have Jason Brett from the Chamber of Digital Commerce come and speak to you all for a little bit while we wait for Patient Physician Network to begin at 10 o'clock. So Jason?
Morning, everybody. So yeah, we're doing this all virtually and pulled this all together, and really want to thank all our sponsors for working through the snow. This has really been a terrific event so far, and we are about 12 minutes away from our next virtual speaker. The Chamber of Digital Commerce is the world's leading trade association for blockchain technology and digital assets. We have a variety of initiatives. We have the Smart Contracts Alliance. We have the Digital Assets Accounting Consortium. We have a state working group. We have a working group called the Blockchain Alliance that works with law enforcement. And we are forming a couple of new working groups around best practices, as well as a working group for which we call the BIPC, which is the Blockchain Intellectual Property Council. The Chamber is really excited about all of these events that are coming up soon. We really want this community to be able to thrive. It wasn't until just a couple of years ago that we faced a lot of issues on the Hill in terms of people actually wanting to ban the virtual currency. And there are other countries where that's happened. One example that I like the best about regulation is the problem you have in regulation. If you look at the car manufacturing industry in the United States versus the car manufacturing industry in England. In England, when automobiles came out, it was considered so unsafe that to drive a car, you had to have a driver, a navigator, and you had to have a person walking in front of the car with a red flag or a red flag on the car to ensure that everyone knew an automobile was coming. Because they were so frightened about accidents that may happen with pedestrians or horses or whatnot. That regulation effectively killed any concept of the possibility of having automobiles built in Great Britain. We didn't have that kind of regulation here in the United States, and that is really the reason why a lot of the auto industry exists the way it does today in Detroit. And we kind of have that same vision when we think about sort of this next revolution of the internet that we're experiencing with blockchain, with the folks that are working on it today, who've been working on it since yesterday morning. through the snow, showing the perseverance to continue to see what this technology can do. So really what we like to think of as most important is running defense, right? Making sure that there's not going to be any restrictive regulations or laws, and specifically here in the United States, so that you are able to explore this fascinating technology that came out of digital currency. And realizing that this technology, blockchain, which is, there's so many different varieties of blockchain, and there'll probably be a different word for it, in the next few years. But to me, it's foundational technology. It's what we experience with TCP IP. There's a lot of different things that can be built upon it. And I think what's most important, and what's most important about what's happening here this morning, is that we literally have a different sector than maybe was ever envisioned by the inventor of the Bitcoin blockchain, which is looking at the healthcare problems that we face. So with that, it's really fascinating to watch that healthcare, of all fields, is the one that is picking up on blockchain the quickest. There were over 70 white papers submitted back in September of 2016. And for the blockchain challenge, which Debbie Bucci, one of the judges from ONC, and that was really an exciting challenge because a lot of thoughts were put down on paper. And I'm sure there was excitement about the white papers that we all heard. So, it's just really great because now we have you're seeing a trade association pop up from 2 years ago that's looking at this technology. You've seen more and more interest. And what's important is, ONC and NIST did this event in September. And really it was through the efforts, really, in my mind, of seeing how Debbie then approached the chamber, worked with Perry Ann, worked with Jonathan Holt, one of the members of the Chamber of Digital Commerce, to really figure out a way of how can we take this to the next step. It's great to have everything out on paper, but what does it actually mean? And if you think about where healthcare is, there's so many challenges in the healthcare industry. We did a whole blockchain and healthcare report that you can see on our website from a policy perspective. And there's just so many challenges that exist in healthcare with HIPAA. We're still trying to maybe move to the cloud in terms of healthcare. And we have all this information, and we have Medicare and Medicaid challenges at the government level. And to me, blockchain can be a solver for all of these. I'm a former regulator from the FDIC. And I was a regulator during the financial crisis in 2008 in the capital markets group. So I got to watch Lehman Brothers and everything happen firsthand, and saw a lot of changes happen very rapidly. And my interest in blockchain came later on when I started looking at how a large bank, if a large bank were to fail, how blockchain technology might be used to sort of track everyone's assets, what you actually own in the banks. The FDIC since 1933 has always been able to give everybody their insured deposits by the next Monday. And there's no way in my mind that anyone would wait around for a few months to figure out, how much money they have were one of these large banks actually to fail. And so to me, the ability of the transparency of blockchain to the regulator was critical, because the transparency with blockchain is one that does not have to be transparent for all. Certainly, to me, when I think of sort of the Bitcoin blockchain, I think of this concept of everyone being able to see everybody's information so we all understand what's happening. And that's sort of like with cash. If I were to hand out $1 and it goes around the area, I'm not too concerned who knows that dollar went around. But if you talk more about health information or higher amounts of transactions, that might become a little more private. So that to me is where, again, the biggest credit goes to those who are participating actively and have done so overnight, bravely, from Rosalind yesterday morning to today here this morning in DC at Georgetown University, to realize that, as I realized, sort of the transparency and the single source of truth of being able to see, exactly how much each person is owed, so that in fact the FDIC could on a Monday morning return everybody's assets. So when I hear Debbie talk a little bit about with Medicaid and the idea of maybe being able to verify if somebody is eligible or not, and terms of speeding up the process, I'm a federal financial regulator formerly, so it's very important. Obviously, people care about their money, but I mean, this is about people's health. So I think the work that you're doing here is noble, and the judges here are watching what people are working on in very early days, and it's exciting to see because it's literally open innovation, and that's something that the chamber completely supports, which is this concept of working with our federal government to figure out how we can lead the way in blockchain. There are a lot of countries around the world that very much are focused on blockchain. Dubai said they want their government to be 100% blockchain by 2020. So there are a lot of other countries out there that are really aggressively putting all their resources into this technology. But I believe the United States can definitely catch up to wherever the others are. It's still early enough days, and treated just right. And that's where we just ask for your support as a nonprofit, and are just so grateful to be working with ONC as a co-sponsor of this event, to be able to see what we can do with healthcare. Again, maybe one of the last suspects that would be thought of for this type of technology, and yet that is what makes it so exciting to me, because we've heard a lot about blockchain and finance for the last couple of years. And again, those are very important things. There's a lot of very old systems in finance, but certainly taking on a challenge where you can allow doctors the fastest information available to them to help with real-time life and death decisions. You can have information flowed from that level all the way to if I just need to schedule an appointment, or if I'm in a doctor's office and I'm trying to get a claim through, having harmony that can exist in that system. So does anyone have any questions or further comments? We're, I think, just a couple minutes away from where we are now going to be able to resume with our 10 a.m. virtual presentation, and then leading to the in-person presentations too. That's one thing that's nice too with the technology, I think, is that we've found a way. We realized we had to move locations, we have to move people from one area to another, but certainly with blockchain and in the internet itself, as it's shown, is we don't always have to be exactly where we are to be able to do things. So really appreciate those who, from wherever they are, hold up doing their virtual participation in this. And for the people who have been able to make it here today, we really appreciate all your attendance. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back to Caitlin, who's going to say a few more remarks, and then we'll be able to resume the judging. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jason. Just a quick update. We do have our fifth judge attending virtually. So he's there. He's got all the scorecards. He's got everything that he needs. Also, this is being recorded. So during the judge's deliberation session, we'll be able to go back, we'll be able to go back and review everything. Zen, are you ready to present yet?
This is Sagar, and Zen and I are going to be doing a joint presentation. So yeah, we are ready.
Okay, wonderful. Just let me know when you're ready to start, and we can begin the clock.
Okay, should I just hit share screen to share my screen?
Yes.
Can you guys see this?
Not yet, just your name.
I am sharing my screen. I don't know whether you have the control or I can. So do it from here myself.
Saga, probably we're using the same link. Let me try to share my screen for.
Well, let me see.
Okay, you get it.
Can you guys see it now?
We can.
Okay, let me go full screen. And I don't know how I can hide this one. There you go. Okay, so is this good? Can you guys see this?
Yep, and I'm going to go ahead and start the clock.
Okay, all right. So the concept here, what we try to do is use blockchain for identity management in patient-physician ecosystem. So here's what I mean by a patient-physician ecosystem. What and this is kind of something that we are really working on, and we thought that blockchain would be a good mechanism for ensuring patient privacy and for verifying physicians. So the idea is this is an ecosystem where patients can form online support groups and share health information, but keeping their identity private. So from a patient perspective, privacy is the key thing here in terms of being able to discuss personal issues, be it addiction, depression, whatever it is, with other patients. They can also do virtual consults with doctors, and this is something that is happening more and more with video chats. And the third piece of it is physicians being able to do peer consults with other physicians, like an internal medicine physician consulting with specialists. And they need to be able to share relevant patient data also without showing patient ID. So these are the three components of the ecosystem. And next slide, which shows it pictorially. The left one is a patient network of support networks, which patients can log in, join online support groups, kind of like Facebook groups, but with a lot more privacy there. And on the right is the physician network, where physicians can join in and consult with their peers, a group of psychiatrists, a group of neurologists, and so on. And they have access to patient data with the patient ID suppressed. The relevance of blockchain here is ensuring patient logs in and then uses just the key. The patient's name is suppressed until you see the e-consult part in the middle. So whenever the only time the patient ID is the name is used is when a patient is doing a consult with a physician. And for physicians, it is very important for them to be credentialed and verified. So blockchain comes not from a privacy standpoint, but from a verification standpoint, where they can be activated within the network only when their credentials have been verified. How does it work? Basically, patient signs up, enters insurance information if the patient is insured. They can do self-help stuff, but for the purpose of this proof of concept, we just went into search for a doctor, and the app shows which doctors are available and also have been credentialed. I'm just going to jump to the screens that we did. I'm going to skip past the physician view, given the time constraint here. But this is what we actually built, a little homepage where patients can sign up, physicians can sign up, and then communicate with each other. This was where a patient signs up. The public key was shown here just for testing, but once they are signed in, a patient can search for doctors by location, name, and specialty. And these are doctors who have been credentialed, and that's where they can then this little screen here where they can see the doctors and the doctor names are linked and they can connect with it. And these are doctors that have been verified and activated within the system. And when physicians,
1 minute.
okay, well, I have more time than I thought. So when physicians sign in, this is their username, or they can use their public key, and that's when they become active within the network. So the one screen that is not shown up here is how a physician signs up, because there was a screen there where a physician can sign up, upload their license information. The license information is verified with the authorities offline, but only the ones that are shown active within the system are the ones that have a public key in the blockchain, and that happens after they are credentialed. So that ensures both sides, both the goals are really being met, that the patient's privacy is maintained and physicians that show within this physician network are verified. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Patient Physician Network. Okay, so from here, I'm just going to give the judges a couple of minutes to wrap up their 3 scorecards. And then we do have a logistics issue where we have to just pause for a little bit for those of you who will be presenting in person. So we're just going to ask that you sit tight for a few minutes. We have a application that we'd like you to download so that we can present without cords. So I'm going to have all of that information for you in just a moment. I just need to converse really quick with Jonathan about that. We're just going to have you come up here as a team and present. And again, same 3 2-minute rule applies. I'll be back in just a couple of minutes.